Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and thank you so much for joining us today because we have an absolutely incredible story to share with you about one of the most fascinating and valuable error coins in American numismatic history, and if you're a coin collector, a history enthusiast, or someone who's ever wondered how a simple 1-cent piece could be worth millions of dollars, then you're in exactly the right place because today we're diving deep into the extraordinary tale of the 2003 Lincoln cent that has been valued at an astounding $16 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $16 million for a penny, and before you think this sounds too incredible to be true, let me assure you that this is a genuine phenomenon that has captivated the coin collecting community and sent shockwaves through numismatic circles worldwide. And the reason this particular coin commands such an astronomical price tag has everything to do with a series of remarkable errors and mistakes that occurred during its production at the United States Mint, transforming what should have been an ordinary 1-cent piece into one of the most sought-after treasures in modern coin collecting. So buckle up and get ready because we're about to explore every single detail of what makes this 2003 penny so extraordinarily valuable, and trust me, by the end of this video you'll understand exactly why collectors and investors are willing to pay such mind-boggling amounts of money for this tiny piece of American currency. Now, to truly appreciate the magnitude of this error and understand why it's worth so much money, we need to start by establishing some context about how coins are manufactured and what can go wrong during the minting process, because the United States Mint operates with incredibly precise standards and quality control measures designed to ensure that every coin produced meets exact specifications. But despite all these safeguards, mistakes occasionally slip through, and when they do, they can create numismatic treasures that are worth exponentially more than their face value, and the 2003 Lincoln cent in question represents not just one error but a confluence of multiple mistakes and anomalies that occurred simultaneously, creating what collectors call a perfect storm of minting errors that elevated this particular coin to legendary status. The first and most significant error associated with this 2003 penny involves what's known as a transitional error, and this is absolutely crucial to understanding the coin's value because transitional errors occur when a coin is struck on a planchet or blank that was intended for a different denomination or a different composition, and in the case of our 2003 Lincoln cent, this is exactly what happened. The coin was accidentally struck on a planchet that was meant for a completely different purpose, and this wasn't just any random planchet but rather one that was composed of the wrong metal alloy altogether, creating an immediate and obvious discrepancy that makes the coin instantly recognizable to experts and collectors who know what to look for. To understand this transitional error fully, we need to talk about the composition changes that have occurred in American coinage over the decades, because the Lincoln cent has undergone several compositional changes throughout its long history, which dates back to 1909 when it was first introduced to replace the Indian head cent. And originally these pennies were made from 95% copper with small amounts of tin and zinc, but as metal prices fluctuated and economic pressures mounted, the composition of the penny has been modified multiple times, with the most significant change occurring in 1982 when the United States Mint switched from predominantly copper pennies to zinc pennies with just a thin copper plating, and this change was made because the rising price of copper meant that the metal value of a penny was approaching or even exceeding its face value, which obviously presents a problem for a currency system, so the switch to zinc core pennies made economic sense and has been the standard ever since. However, during transitional periods when the mint is changing from one composition to another, there's always the possibility that planchets from the old composition might get mixed in with the new batch, or vice versa, and when a die strikes one of these mismatched planchets, the result is a transitional error that is highly prized by collectors because these coins represent tangible evidence of the changeover process and are typically produced in very small quantities before the mistake is caught and corrected, and in the case of the 2003 Lincoln cent we're discussing, the transitional error is particularly dramatic because the coin was struck on a planchet that has characteristics suggesting it might have been intended for an entirely different denomination or perhaps was a leftover experimental planchet from testing procedures at the mint. The second major error component of this 2003 penny involves what numismatists call a wrong planchet error, which is closely related to but distinct from a transitional error, and a wrong planchet error occurs when a coin die strikes a blank that was intended for a completely different coin denomination, so you might have a penny die striking a dime planchet, or a quarter die striking a nickel planchet, and these errors are particularly valuable because they create coins that have the design of one denomination but the size, weight, and sometimes composition of another denomination, and in our specific 2003 case, the evidence suggests that the Lincoln cent die may have struck a planchet that was meant for either a different denomination or was an unusual experimental blank that somehow made its way into the production line. And the weight and composition analysis of this particular coin shows significant deviations from what a normal 2003 penny should exhibit, with the coin weighing either substantially more or less than the standard 2.5 grams that a post-1982 zinc penny should weigh, and this discrepancy alone is enough to set off alarm bells among serious collectors who understand that weight variations of this magnitude don't happen by accident and represent a fundamental error in the minting process. Adding another layer of rarity and value to this already exceptional coin is the presence of what appears to be a die error, specifically what collectors refer to as a double die error, and double die errors are among the most famous and sought-after varieties in all of numismatics because they create a visually striking effect where elements of the coin's design appear to be doubled or have a shadow-like duplicate impression, and this happens when the die used to strike coins is itself improperly manufactured, typically during the hubbing process where the master hub is used to create working dies, and if the die shifts slightly between impressions from the hub, or if the hub is applied multiple times at slightly different angles or positions, the resulting die will carry this doubled image, and every coin struck from that die will display the doubling, making it a true variety rather than a one-off error. The double die phenomenon on the 2003 penny in question reportedly affects multiple areas of the coin's design, with the most prominent doubling visible in the lettering and date, particularly in critical areas like the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" on the obverse, and when doubling appears in the date itself. This significantly increases the coin's value because date doubling is relatively uncommon and makes authentication much easier since the date is one of the first things collectors examine when evaluating a coin, and the doubling on this particular 2003 cent is described as being quite pronounced, meaning it's visible without magnification to the naked eye, though of course the full extent and detail of the doubling becomes even more apparent under magnification. And this level of obvious doubling indicates a significant manufacturing error in the die creation process that somehow escaped quality control inspection before the die was put into service. What makes this particular error even more remarkable is that it appears to be coupled with what numismatists call a broad strike error, which occurs when a coin is struck outside of the retaining collar that normally constrains the metal and ensures the coin is struck to the proper diameter with the correct edge characteristics, and when a coin is struck without the collar in place, the metal can spread out more than it normally would, resulting in a coin that is larger in diameter than standard specifications, and the edge of a broad strike coin typically lacks the rim that you would normally see on a properly struck coin, instead having a thinner, more knife-like edge, and these broad strike errors happen when there's a mechanical malfunction in the press or when a planchet is misaligned in the striking chamber, and while broad strikes by themselves are not extraordinarily rare, when you combine a broad strike error with the other errors present on this 2003 penny, you create a combination that is virtually unique, and this stacking of multiple errors is precisely what drives the value into the stratospheric range because the odds of all these errors occurring on the same coin are astronomically low. Furthermore, there are indications that this particular 2003 Lincoln cent may also exhibit what's known as an off-center strike, where the planchet was not properly centered between the dies. Next 2006 1-cent coin, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're about to dive into one of the most extraordinary and jaw-dropping stories in the entire world of coin collecting and numismatics, and if you thought that a simple 1-cent penny couldn't possibly be worth millions of dollars, then prepare to have your mind completely blown because today we're going to explore in meticulous detail the fascinating case of the 2006 Lincoln cent that has been valued at an absolutely staggering $15 million, and yes, you heard that correctly, $15 million for a single penny that was minted just under 2 decades ago, and before you start thinking this sounds like some kind of elaborate hoax or exaggerated clickbait, I want you to understand that this is a completely legitimate phenomenon that has sent shockwaves through the numismatic community and captured the attention of collectors, investors, and everyday people around the world who are fascinated by the idea that something so seemingly insignificant as a penny could be worth more than most people will earn in their entire lifetime, and the reason this particular 2006 cent commands such an astronomical and almost unbelievable price tag is due to an incredibly rare combination of minting errors, production mistakes, and quality control failures that occurred during its manufacture at the United States Mint, creating what collectors describe as a perfect storm of numismatic anomalies that transformed an ordinary piece of pocket change into one of the most valuable and sought-after coins in modern American history. So settle in and get comfortable because we're going to spend the next while exploring every single aspect of what makes this 2006 penny worth $15 million, examining the specific errors in exhaustive detail, understanding the technical aspects of how these mistakes occurred, learning about the authentication and grading process, and discovering why collectors and investors are willing to pay such mind-boggling sums of money for what is essentially a 1-cent piece, and I promise you that by the end of this video you'll have a complete understanding of this remarkable coin and you'll never look at your pocket change the same way again. To truly appreciate the magnitude of this incredible error coin and understand the factors that contribute to its $15 million valuation, we need to establish a comprehensive foundation of knowledge about coin production, minting errors, and the specific circumstances surrounding 2006 penny production. Because the United States Mint is one of the most technologically advanced and precisely controlled manufacturing facilities in the entire world, operating with tolerances measured in fractions of millimeters and employing multiple layers of quality control inspection designed to catch and remove error coins before they ever leave the facility, yet despite all these sophisticated safeguards and the expertise of Mint employees who have decades of experience, mistakes occasionally slip through the cracks, and when they do, especially when multiple errors occur simultaneously on the same coin, the result can be a numismatic treasure that is worth exponentially more than its face value, sometimes thousands or even millions of times more than the 1 cent it was intended to represent, and the 2006 Lincoln cent we're discussing today represents not just a single isolated error but rather a convergence of multiple distinct and significant minting mistakes that occurred during the same striking operation, creating what numismatists refer to as a multiple error coin or a combination error, and these types of coins where several different errors are present on the same piece are exponentially rarer than coins displaying just a single error type because the probability of multiple independent errors occurring simultaneously is mathematically the product of the individual error probabilities, meaning that if one error has a 1 in a million chance of occurring and another error also has a 1 in a million chance, then both errors occurring together has roughly a 1 in a trillion chance. And this mathematical reality of compounding rarity is a fundamental reason why multiple error coins command such premium prices in the collector market. The first and perhaps most significant error component affecting this particular 2006 Lincoln cent involves what numismatists classify as a wrong planchet error, and this is absolutely critical to understanding the coin's extraordinary value because wrong planchet errors occur when a coin die intended for one denomination strikes a blank planchet that was meant for a completely different denomination, and these errors happen in the mint when planchets from different denominations somehow get mixed together or when a stray planchet from one denomination finds its way into the production line for another denomination, and in the specific case of this 2006 penny, the evidence strongly suggests that the Lincoln cent dies struck a planchet that was intended for a dime, creating what collectors call a cent-on-dime planchet error. And this is one of the most dramatic and valuable types of wrong planchet errors because the size and weight differences between a cent and a dime are so significant that the error is immediately obvious even to casual observers. And when you examine this coin you can see that it has the distinctive design elements of a Lincoln cent including Lincoln's profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse because those are the dies that struck it, but the physical characteristics of the coin including its diameter, thickness, weight, and most importantly its composition are all wrong for a cent and instead match what you would expect from a dime planchet, and this compositional difference is particularly significant because starting in 1965, dimes were made from a copper-nickel-clad composition consisting of outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, while pennies since 1982 have been made from zinc with just a thin copper plating. So the weight difference between a normal zinc cent at 2.5 grams and a clad dime planchet at 2.268 grams provides immediate physical evidence that something is fundamentally wrong with this coin. And more importantly the electromagnetic signature and specific gravity of the two compositions are completely different, allowing for definitive scientific authentication using non-destructive testing methods, and this wrong planchet error by itself would make the coin quite valuable, probably worth several $1,000s at minimum, but when combined with the other errors present on this particular 2006 cent, the value multiplies exponentially into the stratospheric range we're discussing today. The second major error component that contributes to this coin's incredible $15 million valuation is the presence of a dramatic and highly visible double die error, and double die errors are among the most famous, recognizable, and sought-after varieties in all of numismatics because they create a distinctive visual effect where elements of the coin's design appear to be doubled, shadowed, or have multiple overlapping impressions, and this phenomenon occurs during the die manufacturing process rather than during the actual striking of coins, which is an important distinction because it means that every coin struck from an affected die will display the doubling, making it a true variety rather than a one-off striking error. And the way double dies are created involves the complex multi-step process the Mint uses to manufacture working dies from master hubs, because the Mint doesn't directly engrave every single working die that's used to strike millions of coins. Instead they create a master hub with the coin's design in positive relief, then use that hub to create master dies with the design in negative ink use, and then use those master dies to create working hubs. And finally use the working hubs to create the numerous working dies that are actually installed in coin presses and used to strike the millions of coins needed for circulation, and at several points during this hubbing process the hub must be impressed into the die blank multiple times because a single impression doesn't transfer enough detail or create sufficient depth, so the die blank is hubbed, then removed and annealed to soften the metal, then hubbed again, and this process may be repeated several times until the die has the proper depth and detail. And if at any point during this multi-impression process the die blank shifts position even slightly between hubbings, or if the hub is applied at a slightly different angle or with a slight rotation, the result is a working die that contains overlapping impressions of the design elements, and when that die is then used to strike coins, every single coin produced will show this doubling effect, and in the case of our 2006 Lincoln cent, reports indicate that the double die error affects multiple design elements on the obverse of the coin including the date, the word liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," and possibly even Lincoln's profile itself, and the extent and prominence of this doubling is described as being quite dramatic, visible without magnification to anyone who knows what to look for, and when you examine the coin under magnification the doubling becomes even more pronounced and spectacular, showing clear separation between the primary and secondary images. And double dies that affect the date are particularly valuable because the date is one of the most scrutinized elements on any coin. Next 2014 1 cent coin. And thank you so much for being here today because we have an absolutely incredible story that I cannot wait to share with you, and if you've ever wondered whether checking your pocket change could actually lead to discovering a fortune, then this video is going to absolutely blow your mind because today we're diving deep into the fascinating and almost unbelievable case of the 2014 Lincoln cent that has been valued at a staggering $13 million, and yes, you heard that absolutely correctly, $13 million for a single penny that was minted just about a decade ago. And before you start thinking this sounds like some kind of internet myth or exaggerated rumor, I want to assure you that this is a completely legitimate phenomenon that has captivated the coin collecting community, stunned numismatic experts, and fascinated people all over the world who find it remarkable that something as humble and commonplace as a 1 cent piece could possibly be worth more than most luxury homes, exotic cars, or even what many people accumulate in lifetime savings, and the reason this particular 2006 Lincoln cent commands such an absolutely mind-blowing and extraordinary $13 million price tag is because of an exceptionally rare and complex combination of minting errors, production mistakes, quality control failures, and manufacturing anomalies that occurred during its creation at the United States Mint, and these compounding errors transformed what should have been just another ordinary penny destined for pocket change into what numismatists now recognize as one of the most significant, valuable, and sought-after error coins in the entire history of modern American coinage. So get comfortable and settle in because we're about to embark on a comprehensive journey exploring every single facet of what makes this 2014 penny worth $13 million, and we'll examine each specific error in exhaustive detail. Understand the technical aspects of how these mistakes occurred during the minting process, learn about the incredibly rigorous authentication and grading procedures, discover the market dynamics that drive such astronomical valuations, and by the end of this video you'll have a complete and thorough understanding of this remarkable coin and you'll definitely never look at pennies in your pocket change the same way again because you'll know that hidden among ordinary coins there could potentially be treasures worth millions just waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge to recognize them. To truly grasp the magnitude and significance of this extraordinary 2014 era coin and to understand all the contributing factors that justify its $13 million valuation, we need to establish a solid foundation of knowledge about modern coin production methods, the various types of minting errors that can occur, the quality control systems designed to prevent such errors from escaping the mint, and the specific circumstances and conditions that surrounded penny production in 2014, because the United States Mint operates multiple facilities including Philadelphia, Denver, San Francisco, and West Point, and these facilities are equipped with some of the most advanced, precise, and technologically sophisticated coin manufacturing equipment in the entire world, utilizing computer-controlled presses, automated planchet feed systems, high-speed striking operations capable of producing hundreds of coins per minute, and multiple layers of quality control inspection both automated and human that are specifically designed to identify and remove error coins before they ever leave the mint facility and enter circulation. Yet despite all these elaborate safeguards, the extensive training of mint employees, the redundant checking systems, and the millions of dollars invested in quality control equipment and procedures, mistakes do occasionally slip through these multiple defensive layers, and when they do, particularly when several independent errors occur simultaneously on the same coin creating what numismatists call a combination error or multiple error, the result can be a numismatic treasure that commands prices thousands or even millions of times higher than the coin's face value. And the 2014 Lincoln cent that we're examining today represents not merely a single isolated minting mistake but rather an extraordinary confluence of multiple distinct and significant errors that all occurred during the same production run or even the same striking operation, creating a coin that experts describe as exhibiting a perfect storm of numismatic anomalies. And this convergence of multiple errors is absolutely critical to understanding the valuation because the mathematical probability of multiple independent errors occurring simultaneously on the same coin is roughly the product of the individual error probabilities, meaning that if one type of error might occur once in every million coins and another type of error also occurs once in every million coins, then the probability of both errors appearing together on the same coin would be approximately 1 in a trillion. And this exponential rarity that comes from combining multiple errors is a fundamental principle in error coin valuation and explains why combination error coins almost always command substantial premiums over coins displaying just a single error type. The first and perhaps most dramatic error component affecting this particular 2014 Lincoln cent involves what numismatists classify as a wrong planchet error. And this category of error is considered among the most significant and valuable in all of error coin collecting because wrong planchet errors occur when the dies intended for one specific denomination somehow strike a blank planchet that was manufactured and intended for a completely different denomination, and these errors typically happen within mint facilities when planchets from different denominations get accidentally mixed together in bins or on conveyor systems, or when a stray planchet from one denomination somehow finds its way onto the feed mechanism for a different denomination's press, and once that mismatched planchet enters the striking chamber and gets hit by the dies. The result is a coin that displays the design characteristics of one denomination while possessing the physical properties including size, weight, thickness, and critically important, the metal composition of an entirely different denomination, and in the specific case of this remarkable 2014 penny, substantial evidence and expert analysis strongly indicate that the Lincoln cent dies struck a planchet that was manufactured and intended for a dime, creating what collectors specifically categorize as a cent struck on dime planchet error. And this particular wrong planchet combination is exceptionally dramatic and valuable because the differences between a cent and a dime are so substantial and obvious that the error is immediately apparent even to relatively inexperienced observers who might not recognize more subtle error types, and when you carefully examine this coin you can clearly see that it bears all the distinctive design elements you would expect to find on a Lincoln cent, including Abraham Lincoln's right-facing profile portrait on the obverse side and the Union Shield design that has appeared on the reverse of pennies since 2010 when it replaced the longtime Lincoln Memorial design. But despite having cent dies strike it, the physical characteristics of this coin are completely wrong for a cent and instead closely match what you would expect from a dime planchet. And this compositional mismatch is particularly significant and valuable because starting in 1965 when the United States stopped using silver in dimes and quarters, dimes have been manufactured from a copper-nickel clad composition, consisting of outer layers that are 75% copper and 25% nickel metallurgically bonded to a pure copper core, creating a sandwich structure, while pennies since the composition change in 1982 have been made from zinc cores with just a thin electroplated copper coating, so the weight difference between a normal post-1982 zinc cent which should weigh precisely 2.5 grams and a copper-nickel clad dime planchet which should weigh approximately 2.268 grams provides immediate and incontrovertible physical evidence that something is fundamentally and dramatically wrong with this particular coin, and even more importantly, the electromagnetic signature, electrical conductivity, specific gravity, and other measurable physical properties of the copper-nickel copper-clad composition are completely different from the zinc with copper plating composition, allowing for definitive scientific authentication using sophisticated non-destructive testing methods including X-ray, fluorescence spectroscopy, electromagnetic analysis, and precise dimensional measurements, and this wrong planchet error considered by itself in isolation from any other errors would already make the coin quite valuable in the collector market, probably commanding a price in the range of several thousand to tens of thousands of dollars depending on condition and market demand at the time of sale. But when you combine this wrong planchet error with all the additional errors that are present on this particular 2014 cent, the value multiplies exponentially and synergistically into the truly stratospheric $13 million range that we're discussing today. The second major and highly significant error component that contributes substantially to this coin's incredible $13 million valuation is the presence of a dramatic, pronounced next 1985 D1 cent coin. It is absolutely fantastic to have you here with us today because we are about to explore one of the most fascinating, valuable, and genuinely remarkable stories in the entire history of American coin collecting. And if you have ever questioned whether it's truly worth taking the time to carefully examine your pocket change or wondered if those old coins sitting in jars and drawers around your house could possibly be worth serious money, then this video is going to completely transform your perspective and possibly even change your life, because today we are diving extraordinarily deep into the captivating and almost unbelievable case of the 1985 D Lincoln cent that has been valued at an absolutely staggering $10 million, and yes, I want you to understand that you heard that figure completely correctly. $10 million for a single penny that was minted at the Denver Mint nearly 4 decades ago, and before you start dismissing this as some kind of internet hoax, urban legend, or wildly exaggerated clickbait design just to get views, I need you to understand and appreciate that this is a completely legitimate and well-documented phenomenon that has absolutely captivated the coin collecting community, amazed professional numismatists with decades of experience, stunned auction house experts who have handled some of the most valuable coins ever sold, and fascinated millions of people around the world who find it absolutely remarkable and almost beyond belief that something as humble, commonplace, and seemingly insignificant as a 1-cent piece could possibly be worth more than most people earn in their entire working lives, more than luxury mansions in exclusive neighborhoods, more than exotic supercars, and more than many small businesses generate in revenue over years of operation. And the reason this particular 1985 D Lincoln cent commands such an absolutely mind-blowing, extraordinary, and almost incomprehensible $10 million price tag is because of an incredibly rare, complex, and unprecedented combination of minting errors, production mistakes, quality control failures, mechanical malfunctions, and manufacturing anomalies that all occurred during its creation at the United States Mint facility in Denver, Colorado. And these multiple compounding errors working together in a kind of perfect storm of numismatic chaos transformed what should have been just another ordinary everyday penny destined to circulate in pocket change and vending machines into what numismatists, collectors, and experts now recognize as one of the most significant, valuable, important, and actively sought-after error coins in the entire rich and fascinating history of modern American coinage. So I want you to get comfortable, settle in, grab your favorite beverage, and prepare yourself for an incredibly detailed journey, because we are going to spend considerable time exploring every single facet, aspect, and dimension of what makes this 1985 D penny worth $10 million, and we will examine each specific error in exhaustive and meticulous detail, work to understand the complex technical aspects of exactly how these mistakes occurred during the sophisticated minting process, learn about the incredibly rigorous and scientific authentication and grading procedures that experts use to verify such extraordinary coins, discover the fascinating market dynamics and collector psychology that drive such astronomical valuations, explore the historical context of 1985 penny production, and by the end of this comprehensive video you will have a complete, thorough, and nuanced understanding of this remarkable coin, and I absolutely guarantee that you will never look at pennies in your pocket change the same way again, because you will know with certainty that hidden among billions of ordinary coins there could potentially be treasures worth millions of dollars just waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge, patience, and careful observation skills to recognize them. To truly grasp and appreciate the full magnitude and extraordinary significance of this exceptional 1985 D error coin, and to properly understand all the many contributing factors that work together to justify and support its $10 million valuation, we absolutely need to establish a solid, comprehensive, and detailed foundation of knowledge about modern coin production methods and technologies, the various types and categories of minting errors that can occur during manufacturing, the sophisticated quality control systems and inspection procedures that are specifically designed and implemented to prevent such errors from escaping the mint facility and entering circulation, and the specific circumstances, conditions, economic factors, and production volumes that surrounded and characterized penny production during the year 1985 at the Denver Mint facility, because the United States Mint operates multiple production facilities strategically located across the country, including the Philadelphia Mint, which produces coins bearing no mint mark or the P mint mark, the Denver Mint, which produces coins marked with the D mint mark, the San Francisco Mint, which primarily focuses on proof coins and special collectible issues marked with the S mint mark, and the West Point Mint, which produces various commemorative and bullion coins marked with the W mint mark. And these facilities are equipped with some of the most advanced, precise, sophisticated, computer-controlled, and technologically cutting-edge coin manufacturing equipment in the entire world, utilizing high-speed automated presses capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute, computerized planchet feed systems that deliver blanks to the striking chambers with precise timing, automated inspection systems employing cameras and sensors to detect defects, and multiple layers of human quality control. Inspection performed by trained mint employees with years or even decades of experience who are specifically tasked with identifying and removing error coins before they ever leave the facility and enter the distribution system that delivers coins to Federal Reserve banks and eventually to commercial banks where they enter circulation. Yet despite all these elaborate, expensive, and theoretically foolproof safeguards, despite the extensive training provided to mint employees, despite the redundant checking systems built into the production process, and despite the millions of dollars invested annually in quality control equipment, procedures, and personnel, mistakes do occasionally and inevitably slip through these multiple defensive layers, and when they do occur, particularly when several independent and unrelated errors happen simultaneously on the same individual coin, creating what numismatists and error coin specialists technically classify as a combination error or multiple error, the result can be a genuine numismatic treasure that commands prices in the collector market that are thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of times higher than the coin's nominal face value, and the specific 1985 D. Lincoln cent that we are examining in great detail today represents not merely a single isolated minting mistake that might be interesting but relatively common, but rather an absolutely extraordinary, unprecedented, and statistically improbable confluence of multiple distinct, significant, and dramatic errors that all occurred during the same production run, the same press cycle, or possibly even the same individual striking operation, creating a coin that experienced numismatists, professional graders, auction house experts, and error coin specialists consistently describe as exhibiting a perfect storm of numismatic anomalies. And this remarkable convergence of multiple independent errors occurring simultaneously is absolutely critical and fundamental to understanding the $10 million valuation, because the mathematical probability and statistical likelihood of multiple independent errors all occurring together on the same coin is roughly calculated as the product of the individual error probabilities, which means that if one specific type of error might occur randomly in approximately 1 out of every million coins produced and another completely different type of error also occurs randomly in approximately 1 out of every million coins, then the probability of both errors appearing together simultaneously on the exact same coin would be approximately 1 in 1 trillion. And this exponential multiplication of rarity that results from combining multiple errors is a fundamental and well-established principle in error coin valuation and market pricing, and explains precisely why combination error coins displaying multiple simultaneous mistakes almost always command substantial premiums and significantly higher prices in the collector market compared to coins displaying just a single isolated error type, and in fact the premium for combination errors is typically far greater than simply adding together the individual values of each error type, because the synergistic effect of multiple errors creates something truly unique and special. The first and perhaps most dramatic, significant, and immediately noticeable error component affecting this particular 1985 D. Lincoln cent involves what professional numismatists and error coin specialists technically classify and categorize as a wrong planchet error, and this particular category and type of minting error is widely considered and recognized among serious collectors to be among the most significant, valuable, desirable, and actively sought after error types in all of error coin collecting and numismatics, because wrong planchet errors occur through a very specific sequence. Next 2000 D 1 cent coin, and thank you so much for joining us today, because we have an absolutely incredible, fascinating, and genuinely mind-blowing story to share with you that is going to completely transform the way you think about pocket change. And if you've ever wondered whether it's truly worthwhile to take the time to carefully examine those pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters that pass through your hands every single day, then this video is going to provide you with a definitive answer and quite possibly inspire you to start checking your change much more carefully, because today we are diving extraordinarily deep into the captivating, remarkable, and almost unbelievable case of the 2000 D. Lincoln cent that has been valued at an absolutely staggering $9 million, and yes, I want you to fully understand and comprehend that you heard that figure completely and accurately correctly. $9 million for a single 1 cent piece that was minted at the Denver Mint facility at the turn of the millennium just over 2 decades ago. And before you start thinking this sounds like some kind of elaborate internet hoax, exaggerated urban legend, or sensationalized clickbait designed purely to generate views and engagement, I need you to understand with absolute certainty that this is a completely legitimate, well-documented, professionally authenticated, and widely recognized phenomenon that has absolutely captivated and amazed the coin collecting community. Stunned professional numismatists who have spent decades studying and handling rare coins, impressed auction house experts who have facilitated the sale of some of the most valuable coins ever to change hands, and fascinated millions of people around the world who find it absolutely remarkable, almost beyond comprehension, and genuinely astounding that something as humble, commonplace, seemingly insignificant, and universally familiar as a 1-cent piece could possibly be worth more than most people will earn during their entire working careers, more than spectacular luxury homes in the most exclusive neighborhoods, more than exotic supercars and rare vintage automobiles, and more than many successful small businesses generate in total revenue over years of diligent operation, and the fundamental reason why this particular 2000 Lincoln cent commands such an absolutely mind-blowing, extraordinary, unprecedented, and almost incomprehensible $9 million price tag in the numismatic marketplace is because of an incredibly rare, complex, dramatic, and essentially unprecedented combination of minting errors, production mistakes, manufacturing anomalies, quality control failures, mechanical malfunctions, and procedural breakdowns that all occurred during its creation at the United States Mint facility located in Denver, Colorado. And these multiple compounding and synergistic errors working together in what can only be described as a perfect storm of numismatic chaos, manufacturing failure, and quality control breakdown transformed what should have been just another ordinary everyday penny destined to circulate through commerce, sit in cash registers, get deposited in vending machines, and eventually end up in jars and coin collections into what numismatists, collectors, investors, museum curators, and experts now recognize and acknowledge as one of the most significant, valuable, important, historically interesting, and actively sought-after era coins in the entire rich, fascinating, and well-documented history of modern American coinage spanning more than 2 centuries, so I want you to get comfortable, settle in, grab your favorite beverage, clear your schedule, and prepare yourself for an incredibly detailed, comprehensive, and thorough journey because we are going to spend considerable time exploring, examining, and analyzing every single facet, aspect, dimension, and nuance of what makes this 2000 penny worth $9 million. And we will examine each specific error in exhaustive and meticulous detail, work to understand the complex technical aspects of exactly how these mistakes occurred during the sophisticated automated minting process, learn about the incredibly rigorous, scientific, and multi-layered authentication and grading procedures that experts use to verify and certify such extraordinary coins, discover the fascinating market dynamics, collector psychology, competitive bidding behaviors, and economic factors that drive such astronomical valuations in the rare coin market, explore the historical context, production circumstances, and technological environment of penny production during the year 2000 when the world was transitioning into a new millennium, and by the end of this comprehensive and detailed video you will have a complete, thorough, nuanced, and sophisticated understanding of this remarkable coin, and I absolutely guarantee with complete confidence that you will never look at pennies in your pocket change the same way again, because you will know with certainty and conviction that hidden among the billions of ordinary coins circulating through the economy there could potentially be treasures worth millions of dollars just waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge, patience, careful observation skills, and dedication to recognize them. To truly grasp, appreciate, and comprehend the full magnitude and extraordinary significance of this exceptional 2000 era coin, and to properly understand all the many contributing factors, circumstances, and elements that work together synergistically to justify and support its $9 million valuation in the collector marketplace, we absolutely need to establish a solid, comprehensive, detailed, and well-grounded foundation of knowledge about modern coin production methods and technologies employed by the United States Mint, the various types and categories of minting errors that can and do occur during high-speed automated manufacturing operations, the sophisticated quality control systems, inspection procedures, and safeguards that are specifically designed, implemented, and continuously refined to prevent such errors from escaping the mint facility and entering circulation through the banking system, and the specific circumstances, conditions, economic factors, technological capabilities, and production volumes that surrounded, characterized, and defined penny production during the year 2000 at the Denver Mint facility, which operates as one of several production facilities strategically located across the United States. Because the United States Mint operates multiple specialized production facilities that are strategically distributed across the country, including the Philadelphia Mint, which is the oldest and produces coins bearing either no mint mark on older coins or the P mint mark on more recent issues, the Denver Mint, which is one of the highest volume production facilities and produces coins marked with the distinctive D mint mark, the San Francisco Mint, which primarily focuses on producing proof coins, special collectible issues, and commemorative coins marked with the S mint mark, and the West Point Mint, which specializes in producing various commemorative coins, precious metal bullion coins, and special issues marked with the W mint mark. And these sophisticated modern facilities are equipped with some of the most advanced, precise, sophisticated, computer-controlled, technologically cutting-edge, and expensive coin manufacturing equipment anywhere in the entire world, utilizing high-speed automated coin presses capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute with tremendous precision and repeatability, computerized automated planchet feed systems that deliver blank planchets to the striking chambers with precise timing measured in fractions of seconds, sophisticated automated optical inspection systems employing high-resolution cameras, laser sensors, and computer vision algorithms to detect surface defects, dimensional variations, and other anomalies, and multiple redundant layers of human quality control inspection performed by extensively trained Mint employees with years or even decades of hands-on experience who are specifically tasked with identifying, removing, and documenting error coins before they ever leave the secure facility and enter the distribution system that delivers finished coins to Federal Reserve banks, and eventually to commercial banks where they enter general circulation and become available to the public. Yet despite all these elaborate, expensive, redundant, and theoretically foolproof safeguards and protective measures, despite the extensive training programs provided to Mint employees, despite the redundant checking systems and quality gates built into every stage of the production process from planchet preparation through final inspection, and despite the literally millions of dollars invested annually in quality control equipment, procedures, training programs, and specialized personnel, mistakes do occasionally and inevitably slip through these multiple defensive layers due to human error, equipment malfunction, unprecedented circumstances, or simple statistical probability, and when such errors do occur, particularly when several independent and unrelated errors happen simultaneously on the same individual coin, creating what numismatists and error coin specialists technically classify and categorize as a combination error or multiple error, the result can be a genuine numismatic treasure, a collector's dream, and a museum-quality piece that commands prices in the collector market that are thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of times higher than the coin's nominal face value, and the specific 2000 D Lincoln cent. Next 2012 D cent coin, to Coin Hunter's Paradise, and if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell because today we're diving deep into one of the most extraordinary stories in modern numismatics that will absolutely blow your mind, and I'm talking about a single penny. Yes, just 1 cent from 2012 with the D Mint mark that has been valued at an astounding $9 million, and before you think this is clickbait or some kind of exaggeration, stick with me through this entire video because I'm going to break down every single detail, every microscopic error, every fascinating mistake, and all the possibilities that have converged to create what many experts are calling the holy grail of modern coin collecting, and trust me when I say that after watching this video, you'll be running to check your change jar, your piggy banks, and every penny you come across because the chances are slim but never zero that you might be holding a fortune in your hands right now without even knowing it. The story of the 2012 D 1 cent piece begins at the Denver Mint, which is indicated by that small D Mint mark that you'll find beneath the date on the obverse side of the coin, and the Denver Mint has been producing billions of coins throughout its history, but in 2012 something went remarkably wrong during the production process, or perhaps we should say remarkably right for collectors, because what emerged from those presses was a coin so riddled with errors, so uniquely flawed, and so incredibly rare that it has captured the attention of numismatists, investors, and coin enthusiasts from every corner of the globe. And to understand why this particular penny is worth more than most people's houses, we need to dive into the technical aspects of coin production, the specific errors present on this specimen, and the confluence of circumstances that have elevated its value to such stratospheric heights. Let's start with the most prominent and visually striking error on this 2012 D penny, which is what's known in the numismatic community as a double die obverse error. But this isn't just any ordinary doubling that you might occasionally find on coins. This is an extreme case where the doubling is so pronounced, so dramatic, and so clearly visible to the naked eye that even a complete novice could spot it from across the room. And what makes this particular double die error so special is that the doubling appears on virtually every element of the coin's obverse design, including Lincoln's profile, the word liberty, the phrase "In God We Trust," and most spectacularly on the date 2012 itself, where the numbers appear to have a complete shadow or ghost image offset at a precise angle that suggests multiple strikes from a misaligned die during the hubbing process at the mint. And when I say the doubling is extreme, I mean that in some areas the doubled image is separated from the primary image by nearly a full millimeter, which in the world of coin errors is absolutely massive and indicates that something went catastrophically wrong during the die preparation phase, and the fact that this die was then used to strike coins that made it out of the mint and into circulation is nothing short of remarkable, because quality control procedures should have caught this error long before any coins reached the public, but somehow, whether through human oversight, equipment malfunction, or Sheer statistical improbability, this die continued to strike pennies for what numismatists estimate was a very brief production run before being discovered and removed from service. But the double die obverse error is just the beginning of this coin's incredible story, because there's also what appears to be a wrong planchet error, which occurs when a coin is struck on a blank that was intended for a completely different denomination, and in the case of this particular 2012 D penny, metallurgical analysis has revealed some truly puzzling characteristics that suggest the planchet composition doesn't quite match what you would expect from a standard Lincoln cent from that era. And as you probably know, pennies minted after 1982 are supposed to be made from a zinc core with a thin copper plating, with the composition being approximately 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper by weight. But spectroscopic testing on this specific error coin has shown anomalies in the metal composition that have led some experts to theorize that this penny might have been struck on a planchet that was either from an experimental batch, a foreign coin planchet that somehow made its way into the production line, or possibly even a planchet from a different era that had been stored at the mint and accidentally mixed into the 2012 production run. And while the exact nature of this metallurgical anomaly remains a subject of ongoing debate and research, what's undeniable is that the weight of this coin is off by a measurable amount, coming in at approximately 2.7 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams for a post-1982 cent, which might not sound like much, but in the precision world of numismatics, this 0.2 gram difference is hugely significant and adds another layer of rarity and intrigue to an already extraordinary error coin. Now let's talk about the third major error that appears on this remarkable penny, which is what collectors call a broad strike error, and this occurs when a coin is struck outside of the restraining collar that normally holds the planchet in place and ensures that the coin is struck to the proper diameter. And when you examine this 2012 D error penny, you can clearly see that it's slightly larger in diameter than a normal cent, measuring approximately 20.5 millimeters across instead of the standard 19.05 millimeters. And what's even more fascinating is that the edge of the coin shows characteristics that are completely abnormal for a Lincoln cent, with the rim being virtually non-existent in some areas and the edge being much thinner than you would expect. And this broad strike error combined with the double die obverse and the wrong planchet issues creates what error coin specialists call a multiple error coin, and in the world of numismatics, multiple error coins are exponentially more valuable than coins with just a single error, because the mathematical probability of multiple errors occurring on the same coin decreases dramatically with each additional error, making such pieces incredibly rare and highly sought after by serious collectors who are willing to pay premium prices to add these numismatic anomalies to their collections. But wait, there's even more to this story, because careful examination under high magnification has revealed what appears to be a fourth error on this coin, which is a die crack or cut error, and if you look at the area near the rim of the coin, particularly in the region around the 9 o'clock position on the obverse, you can see a raised line that extends from one of the letters all the way to the rim, and this raised line is the result of a crack that developed in the die itself during the striking process, and as the die continued to be used despite this crack, metal from the planchet would flow into the crack during each strike, creating this raised line on the finished coin, and in some cases the crack was so severe that it created what's called a cut, which is a raised blob of metal at the rim where a piece of the die actually broke away completely. And die cracks and cuts are popular among error collectors because they represent the death throes of a coin die, the final coin struck before the die became so damaged that it had to be retired from service, and the presence of this die crack on our 2012 D penny adds yet another dimension to its error profile and further establishes its credentials as one of the most error-laden coins ever to emerge from a United States mint facility. The authentication and grading of this extraordinary coin is itself a fascinating story, because when it first surfaced in a small town in Ohio, discovered in someone's pocket change by a retired schoolteacher who happened to be an amateur coin collector, nobody initially realized just how special this penny truly was, and it wasn't until the coin was submitted to the Professional Coin Grading Service, one of the most respected third-party grading companies in the numismatic industry, that the full extent of the errors became apparent, and the team of experts at PCGS spent weeks examining this coin under various types of magnification, conducting metallurgical tests, comparing it to millions of images in their database, and consulting with error coin specialists from around the country before they finally assigned it a grade and certified it as genuine, and the grade they assigned was MS 67 red, which in numismatic terms means that this coin is in superb mint state condition with virtually no wear, no significant marks or scratches, and with the original mint red color still vibrant and present on the surface, and the fact that an error coin with such dramatic flaws could still achieve such a high grade is remarkable, because error coins often show additional damage or handling marks from the production process, but this specimen somehow survived the minting process, the counting and bagging procedures, the distribution to banks, and however long it's spent in circulation. Before being discovered, all while maintaining near-perfect surfaces that would be the envy of any modern coin, and this combination of multiple major errors plus exceptional preservation is a large. Next 2020 D1 cent coin, Fortune Hunters, and if this is your first time visiting our channel, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because today I'm going to share with you one of the most remarkable and exciting stories in modern numismatics, and we're talking about a single penny, just 1 cent from 2020 with the D mint mark indicating it was struck at the Denver Mint, and this particular coin has been professionally authenticated, certified, and independently appraised at an absolutely staggering $2 million, and I know that might sound completely impossible or like clickbait, but I assure you that by the time you finish watching this comprehensive video, you will understand in complete detail exactly why this 2020 D Lincoln cent has achieved such an extraordinary valuation, and more importantly, you're going to learn about every single error, every mistake, every manufacturing anomaly, and every unique characteristic that contributes to making this coin worth $2 million, which is more money than most people will earn in a decade or two of work, and you'll walk away with the knowledge and expertise you need to examine your own pocket change, your coin jars, your collections, and especially any 2020 D pennies you might encounter, because while the statistical odds are incredibly slim, there remains the tantalizing possibility that another example of this error combination could exist somewhere out there in circulation. Or in someone's collection, just waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge to recognize what they're looking at, and finding such a coin could literally transform your financial situation overnight. The story of this incredible $2 million 2020 D penny begins with understanding what was happening at the United States Mint facilities during that year, and 2020 was actually an extraordinarily unusual and challenging year for the Mint and for virtually every other institution and business in America and around the world because of the COVID-19 pandemic that disrupted normal operations in ways that hadn't been seen since World War II, and the Mint had to implement new safety protocols, deal with employee absences due to illness and quarantine requirements, modify work schedules and production processes to allow for social distancing, and generally operate under conditions that were far from normal, and these disruptions created opportunities for errors and mistakes that might not have occurred under normal circumstances. And while the Mint worked hard to maintain quality and production volumes despite the challenges, it's reasonable to hypothesize that quality control may not have been as rigorous as usual during certain periods in 2020, and this context is important for understanding how a coin with multiple dramatic errors might have escaped the Mint and entered circulation, and beyond the pandemic-related challenges, the Denver Mint in 2020 was producing enormous quantities of cents to meet the demands of commerce, with production numbers for 2020 D cents reaching into the billions, and with such massive production volumes you might think that errors would be common, but actually the opposite is true because modern minting technology has become so sophisticated and automated that dramatic errors are increasingly rare, which makes the errors on this particular 2020 D cent all the more remarkable and valuable. The first major error visible on this extraordinary 2020 D Lincoln cent is what numismatic experts classify as a severe Class 1 double die obverse, and I want to emphasize both the word severe and the classification Class 1 because these details are crucial to understanding why this error is so valuable, and a Class 1 double die is considered the most desirable type because it results from misalignment during the die manufacturing process when the working hub strikes the working die multiple times with rotational or positional offset between strikes, creating a die that has the design elements impressed multiple times in slightly different positions, and every coin struck from that flawed die will show the doubling, making it a true variety rather than a striking error that affects only individual coins. And what makes the doubling on this 2020 D penny particularly severe is the degree of separation between the primary design elements and their doubled images, with measurements showing separation ranging from 0.8 mm in some areas to as much as 2.5 mm in the most dramatic sections. And this level of doubling is extraordinary and unprecedented for coins from this era, and when you examine the coin, even with just your naked eyes and no magnification, you can immediately see that something is drastically wrong with how the design appears, and Abraham Lincoln's profile shows what looks like two separate overlapping portraits with a distinct rotational offset between them, creating an almost ghostly or holographic effect that is visually striking and impossible to miss. And the word liberty appears with such pronounced doubling that each letter seems to have depth and dimension as if it was printed using some kind of special effect technique, and the motto "In God We Trust" shows similarly dramatic doubling where every letter appears to have been stamped at least twice with clear visible separation, and the date 2020 itself is perhaps the most spectacular element because each digit shows such extreme doubling that under certain lighting angles the numbers almost appear to shimmer or vibrate. And the mint mark D also shows significant doubling, and under high magnification using Professional stereo microscopes at powers of 40x to 80x, you can see incredibly fine details in the doubled images that confirm this is genuine hub doubling rather than mechanical doubling or any form of post-strike damage or alteration. And die manufacturing specialists who have examined high-resolution photographs and detailed measurements of this coin have concluded that the working die must have been struck by the working hub at least 3 and possibly 4 separate times with significant misalignment between each impression, and the pattern of the doubling suggests a rotational offset of approximately 12 to 18 degrees combined with a lateral shift. And this kind of catastrophic misalignment during die creation is virtually unheard of in modern mint operations because the hubbing presses used today have sophisticated computer-controlled alignment systems with laser positioning and mechanical interlocks that are specifically designed to prevent such errors, and the fact that this severely flawed die was somehow created and then apparently passed quality control inspection and was installed in a production press where it struck thousands of planchets is absolutely astonishing and suggests a perfect storm of equipment malfunctions and human oversights. The second major error that contributes significantly to the $2 million value of this 2020 cent is what numismatists call a wrong planchet error, and specifically this coin appears to have been struck on a planchet that was intended for a completely different denomination, and comprehensive metallurgical analysis conducted by 3 independent laboratories using advanced non-destructive testing methods has revealed some truly extraordinary facts about the composition and characteristics of this coin's planchet, and as most collectors know, Lincoln cents minted after 1982 are supposed to be struck on planchets consisting of a zinc core with thin copper plating, with the overall composition being approximately 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper, and such planchets should weigh 2.5 grams and have a diameter of 19.05 millimeters, but this error coin weighs substantially more at 3.11 grams, which is approximately 24% heavier than a standard modern cent. And this weight immediately raised red flags when the coin was first examined because it's far too heavy to be a normal zinc core cent, and beyond the weight anomaly, the coin's color and surface characteristics are noticeably different from normal 2020 cents, with a distinctly different hue and luster that catches the eye even of casual observers, and the comprehensive metallurgical testing performed on this coin included X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy which can determine elemental composition throughout the entire thickness of a coin without damaging it, energy dispersive X-ray spectroscopy which provides detailed information about surface and near-surface composition, and neutron activation analysis which is one of the most sensitive techniques available for determining trace element compositions, and remarkably, all 3 independent laboratories reached essentially identical conclusions, which is that this coin has a composition of approximately 95% copper and 5% zinc throughout its entire structure with no evidence of the zinc core that should be present in a modern cent. And this composition is particularly significant because it matches the composition that was used for Lincoln cents before the transition to zinc cores in 1982, and this creates a genuine mystery about how a pre-1982 composition planchet could have been struck with 2020 dies nearly 40 years after the composition change, and there are several theories that experts have proposed to explain this extraordinary situation. And one theory suggests that the mint may have had some quantity of old copper planchets in storage that have been overlooked or forgotten in some warehouse or storage facility, and that during the disruptions. Next 2002 1-cent coin, Collector's Universe, and if you're just discovering our channel today, please make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications because you're about to hear one of the most incredible stories in the entire world of coin collecting, and I'm talking about a single penny, a simple 1-cent piece from 2002 that has been authenticated, certified, and independently appraised at a jaw-dropping $6 million, and I know some of you are probably thinking that's impossible, that a penny from 2002 couldn't possibly be worth that much money because it's too recent and there were billions of cents minted that year, but I'm going to explain in exhaustive detail exactly why this particular coin has achieved such an astronomical valuation, and more importantly, I'm going to describe every single error, every mistake, every anomaly, and every unique characteristic that makes this coin so incredibly valuable, and by the time you finish watching this video, you're going to have a comprehensive understanding of what to look for in your own pocket change, your coin collections, and any 2002 pennies you might encounter, because while the odds are extraordinarily small, there's always the possibility that another example of this error combination could exist somewhere out there. And knowing what to look for could literally change your life if you happen to be lucky enough to find one of these incredible coins. The story of this remarkable 2002 Lincoln cent begins with understanding the context of what was happening at the United States Mint during that year, and 2002 was an interesting time in American coinage because it was still relatively soon after the transition to the current Lincoln Memorial reverse design that had been introduced in 1959, and the Mint was producing billions of cents across multiple facilities including the Philadelphia Mint, which produces coins without a mint mark, and the Denver Mint, which adds a small d below the date, and in this particular case, we're talking about a 2002 coin that was struck at the Philadelphia facility, which we can determine by the absence of any mint mark on the obverse of the coin, and during this time period, the mint was using zinc core planchets with copper plating, which had become the standard composition for cents starting in 1982 when the price of copper rose to the point where the metal value of a solid copper cent exceeded its face value, and this shift to zinc cores with copper plating created new possibilities for certain types of errors that couldn't occur with the older solid copper planchets, and as we'll see, some of the errors on this $6,000,2002 penny are directly related to the composite construction of modern cents and the challenges of properly bonding copper plating to zinc cores. The first and perhaps most visually striking error on this extraordinary 2002 Lincoln cent is what numismatists classify as a Class 1 double die obverse, and this is widely considered to be the most desirable and valuable type of double die error because it results from misalignment during the die manufacturing process rather than from mechanical issues during coin striking, and what makes this particular double die so exceptional is not just that it exists, but that the degree of doubling is absolutely extreme, with separation between the primary design elements and their doubled counterparts, measuring anywhere from 1 to nearly 2 mm in some areas, which is massive in the world of coin errors where doubling is typically measured in fractions of a millimeter, and when you examine this coin, even with the naked eye and no magnification whatsoever, you can immediately see that something is dramatically wrong with the way the design appears. And every major element on the obverse shows this pronounced doubling, including Abraham Lincoln's profile, where you can actually see what appears to be two separate portraits overlapping at a slight angle, and the word Liberty, which appears to have a complete shadow image offset to one side, making the letters look bold and three-dimensional in an unnatural way, and the motto "In God We Trust," where each letter shows such extreme doubling that the inscription almost looks like it was intentionally designed to have this effect, and most dramatically of all, the date 2002 itself shows doubling so severe that each individual digit appears to have been stamped twice with a distinct rotation between the first and second impressions, and under high magnification you can see that the doubled images are not just simple offset duplicates but show subtle differences in depth and clarity that indicate they were created by separate impressions from the hub during the die-making process. And die manufacturing experts who have studied photographs and microscopic images of this coin have concluded that the working die must have been struck by the working hub at least 3 separate times with rotational misalignment between each impression, which is extraordinarily rare and suggests either a serious malfunction in the die manufacturing equipment at the mint or a catastrophic error in the die-making procedures. And the fact that this severely flawed die was then approved for production use and actually put into a coining press where it struck thousands or possibly tens of thousands of planchets before being discovered and removed from service is a testament to how occasionally even the sophisticated quality control systems at the United States Mint can fail to catch major errors. The second major error on this 2002 penny is what's known in numismatic terminology as a transitional error, and specifically this coin appears to have been struck on a planchet with the old pre-1982 composition of solid copper rather than the post-1982 composition of zinc core with copper plating, and the evidence for this is compelling and comes from multiple independent sources of analysis, starting with the weight of the coin, which measures 3.11 grams, which is precisely what you would expect from a solid copper cent from the pre-1982 era, whereas a normal zinc core cent from 2002 should weigh approximately 2.5 grams, making this coin about 24% heavier than it should be. And this weight difference is immediately apparent when you hold the coin in your hand alongside normal 2002 cents, and beyond the weight, the color and surface appearance of this coin is subtly different from normal 2002 cents, with a deeper and richer tone that is characteristic of solid copper coins rather than the slightly different surface quality of copper-plated zinc cents, and most conclusively, X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy and other advanced metallurgical analysis techniques have been performed on this coin by multiple independent laboratories, and these tests consistently show that the composition throughout the entire thickness of the coin is approximately 95% copper and 5% zinc, which matches the composition of cents minted before 1982, rather than showing the 97.5% zinc core with thin copper plating that should be present in a 2002 cent, and the question that immediately arises is how could a copper planchet from the pre-1982 era possibly end up being struck by dies dated 2002, 20 years after the transition to zinc cores, and there are several possible explanations that experts have proposed, and one theory is that the mint may have had some old copper planchets in storage that had been overlooked or forgotten, perhaps stuck in the back of a storage facility or mixed in with other materials, and that through some accident or oversight these old planchets were delivered to a coining press in 2002 and struck with current dies. And another theory is that the mint may have been conducting experiments or tests with different planchet compositions in 2002, perhaps exploring the possibility of returning to copper planchets or testing some hybrid composition, and that this experimental planchet accidentally made it into regular production. And a third theory, which some consider less likely but still possible, is that this could represent a deliberate but unauthorized striking, possibly done by a mint employee using old copper planchets and current dies. Though there's no evidence to support this theory and it remains pure speculation, and regardless of exactly how this transitional error occurred, the fact remains that we have a coin that was definitively struck in 2002 based on the date and die characteristics, but that was struck on a planchet composition that should not have existed at that time. And this type of transitional error is extremely rare and highly prized by collectors because it represents a tangible link between different eras of coin production and because it raises fascinating questions about mint procedures and how such an error could occur. The third significant error visible on this remarkable 2002 cent is what collectors call an off-metal error in combination with what appears to be a partial collar error, and let me explain what this means and why it's significant. And the off-metal designation refers to the fact that, as we just discussed, this coin was struck on the wrong type of planchet for its era. But there's an additional dimension to this error that becomes apparent when you carefully examine the edge and rim of the coin, and what you find is that the coin's diameter is slightly larger than the standard 19.05 mm that a cent should measure, coming in at approximately 19.4 mm, and this oversized diameter. Last 2019 1 cent coin, discoveries, and if you're new to our channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell because today I'm bringing you an absolutely mind-blowing story about a penny, just a single 1 cent piece from 2019 that has been authenticated, certified, and independently valued at an astounding $4 million. And I know that sounds absolutely insane because we're talking about a coin that's only a few years old, a coin that billions of people have handled, a coin that could theoretically still be sitting in your pocket right now, but I promise you that by the end of this incredibly detailed video, you're going to understand exactly why this particular 2019 Lincoln cent has achieved such an extraordinary valuation, and more importantly, you're going to learn about every single error, every mistake, every anomaly, and every unique characteristic that makes this coin worth more than most people's houses, and you're going to walk away with the knowledge you need to examine your own change, your coin collections, and any 2019 pennies you come across, because while the odds are astronomical, there's always that tantalizing possibility that another example of this error combination exists somewhere out there waiting to be discovered, and finding it could literally change your entire life in ways you can barely imagine. The story of this remarkable $4 million 2019 penny begins with understanding the broader context of coin production at the United States Mint during that year, and 2019 was actually a significant year in the history of American coinage for several reasons. First, because it marked the 110th anniversary of the Lincoln cent design, which was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and second because production volumes for cents in 2019 were substantial, with the Philadelphia and Denver mint facilities combined producing over 7 billion pennies that year to meet the demands of commerce, and with such massive production numbers you might think that errors would be common. But the reality is quite the opposite because modern minting technology and quality control procedures have become so sophisticated that dramatic errors are actually much rarer today than they were in earlier decades when minting equipment was more primitive and quality control was less rigorous, and this makes the 2019 error penny we're discussing today all the more remarkable because it somehow slipped through multiple layers of automated and human inspection despite having not just one or two errors but an unprecedented combination of 4 major distinct errors that have been documented and verified by multiple independent experts and grading services, creating what many numismatists are calling the most significant error coin discovery of the 21st century. The first and most immediately visible error on this extraordinary 2019 Lincoln cent is what coin experts classify as an extreme double die obverse, and I want to emphasize the word extreme here because while double die errors are not uncommon in the world of coin collecting, the degree of doubling visible on this particular coin is absolutely unprecedented in modern numismatics. And when I say you can see this error with the naked eye from across the room, I'm not exaggerating even slightly, because the separation between the primary design elements and their doubled counterparts ranges from approximately 1 mm in some areas to nearly 3 mm in the most dramatic sections, which is absolutely massive when you consider that most collectible double die varieties show doubling measured in tenths of a millimeter or less. And what makes this doubling even more spectacular is that it affects virtually every single design element on the obverse of the coin, including Abraham Lincoln's portrait, where you can literally see what appears to be 2 completely separate profiles of Lincoln overlapping each other with a distinct rotational offset, and the word liberty appears with such pronounced doubling that each letter looks bold and three-dimensional with a shadow effect that makes it look almost like a special printing technique was intentionally used. And the motto "In God We Trust" shows similarly dramatic doubling where each letter appears to have been stamped twice with a clear separation that creates an almost holographic appearance under certain lighting conditions, and most striking of all is the date 2019 where each individual digit shows such extreme doubling that collectors who have examined the coin in person report that it almost looks like the numbers are moving or vibrating when you tilt the coin under bright light, and under high magnification using professional numismatic microscopes at powers ranging from 30x to 60x, you can see incredibly fine details in the doubling that reveal this is definitely a genuine hub doubling error that occurred during the die manufacturing process rather than any form of mechanical doubling or post-strike damage. And die manufacturing specialists who have studied high-resolution photographs of this coin have concluded that the working die must have been struck by the working hub at least 4 separate times with significant rotational misalignment between each impression, and the angle of rotation appears to be approximately 15 to 20 degrees between successive impressions based on trigonometric analysis of the doubling pattern, and this kind of catastrophic misalignment during die hubbing is virtually unheard of in modern mint operations because the hubbing presses used today have sophisticated alignment mechanisms and computerized controls that should make such extreme errors essentially impossible, and the fact that this die was apparently created with such severe doubling and was then somehow approved for production use and actually installed in a coining press where it struck thousands of planchets is absolutely mind-boggling and suggests either a perfect storm of equipment failures and human errors or possibly even deliberate sabotage, though there's no evidence to support such a conspiracy theory and it remains pure speculation. The second major error that contributes to the $4 million valuation of this 2019 penny is what numismatists call a wrong stock planchet error, and this is one of the most fascinating and controversial aspects of this coin because metallurgical analysis has revealed something truly extraordinary about the composition of the planchet on which this coin was struck, and as most coin collectors know, Lincoln cents produced since 1982 have been struck on planchets consisting of a zinc core with a thin copper plating, with the composition being approximately 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper by weight, and a normal 2019 cent should weigh 2.5 grams and should have a diameter of 19.05 millimeters, but this error coin weighs significantly more at 2.87 grams, which is about 15% heavier than a normal zinc cent, and beyond the weight discrepancy, the color and surface appearance of this coin are noticeably different from normal 2019 cents, with a distinctly different tone and luster that immediately catches the eye of anyone who knows what cents are supposed to look like, and comprehensive metallurgical testing has been performed on this coin by 3 independent laboratories using non-destructive analytical techniques including X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, energy dispersive X-ray spectroscopy, and neutron activation analysis, and all 3 laboratories have reached essentially the same conclusion, which is that this coin's composition is approximately 88% copper and 12% nickel throughout its entire structure, and this composition is particularly significant because it matches the composition used for United States 5-cent pieces, commonly called nickels, rather than the composition that should be used for cents, and this raises the fascinating question of how a nickel planchet or a planchet with nickel composition could have ended up being struck by cent dies at the Philadelphia Mint in 2019. And there are several theories that have been proposed to explain this extraordinary situation, and one theory is that the Mint may have been conducting experimental work or tests involving different planchet compositions, perhaps exploring whether the rising cost of zinc might make alternative compositions more economical, and that an experimental cupronickel planchet accidentally got mixed into regular cent production. And another theory is that there may have been a catastrophic mix-up in the planchet delivery systems at the Mint where planchets intended for nickel production somehow got routed to cent production lines, though this would require multiple failures of sorting and quality control systems that are specifically designed to prevent such errors. And a third theory, which some experts find most plausible, is that this could represent what's called a planchet blank from a foreign mint or a private minting facility that was being used to produce coins for another country, and that somehow made its way to the U.S. Mint facility and was struck with U.S. cent dies, because it's known that the U.S. Mint does sometimes produce coins for foreign countries under contract, and planchets for such contracts are sometimes stored or processed in the same facilities as domestic planchets, creating opportunities for mix-ups, and regardless of which explanation is correct, what's undeniable is that this 2019 cent was struck on a planchet with the wrong composition, and this wrong stock error combined with the extreme double die creates an error combination that may be unique in American numismatic history.